I have heard of this new African American museum that was built, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago in Washington, D.C. The architect was actually a Ghanaian who's had some challenges lately. You couldn't get in for the first 3 years. I couldn't get a ticket to get in. And in the last 2 years, I've been able to go. And it's a history of the African American people in America. And it's 5 floors. And it starts from the basement, and it's a chronological sort of floor by floor, decade or century by century. The place is packed, even after 4 years, of people from all over the world who want to learn this history. And at each, collage and picture, there's a detailed history of the ships came from where, what Denmark got, what Sweden got, what England got, how many slaves moved around. I mean, the history is comprehensive. And you learn about things that you never knew about. So you think to yourself, ever built in Africa? Why can't we, in Sub-Sahara at least? Why can't we do that here? And isn't that an opportunity for us? If we could do that. Thousands of people coming and crowding our gates to learn of that history. Not just about slavery, because it's not just about slavery. It's much more than that. What kind of impact would that have in a place like Elmina, where for 3 years you can't even get a ticket? If you had those kinds of people coming into your town, all the things that Anthony talked about, where you have people coming and learning, but also staying and putting money in your economy. So, on the one hand, it's very much about education and a story that we're not telling that would benefit all of us, not just from people from Elmina, but all of us here. On the other hand, it's things that will specifically benefit this town and its surroundings. And if we can achieve that, how transformational that would be. Anthony talked about not just tourism, sanitation, waste management, employment. I mean, there's so many aspects of this that we would be addressing. And the issues around Elmina are a microcosm of the issues in the country. We know this. We know this. But can we do our little bit in our little corner that actually radiates out and benefits, the rest of the country in some small way? We can't influence what happens in Kumasi or Accra, but we can influence what happens here. And so really the idea really is, let's put the vision out. Let's not assume we can do it in a year or two. It's a quick fix. It's a lightning switch. Lay out a very deliberate plan, step by step by step, to achieve that plan. And that's really the purpose of Elmina Heritage Foundation. Let's join forces. Let's think foundations, to where they are, need to achieve our goals. And we want to tap into diaspora, the people we know. As I'm sure many of you know, a lot of sons and daughters of Elmina live all over the world. And we want to tap into that network. And we believe that if we're successful, then we have people in the US, in Europe, and wherever else, because there's an educational component to this. Use that to raise money. We have our artists in the Elmina family. We want to tap into that network and help us raise money to tell that story. And if we can be fluent and articulate and persuasive, we feel we can raise the kind of money we have never seen in Elmina in recent times. And we're not talking about 1.6 million euro. Our goal is much higher than that. Eventually, what we like to do is bring in and present, not just tell the story, but express that story in the museums that we have today. Wouldn't it be great, to have a museum that shows those families? Because it's not just about those families, it's about how they interacted with the rest of the village, what impact they had, the Asafos. There's so much there that I don't know. Our children don't know, our cousins don't know, and if we could get them here because it's something to see, a place to be, a place to stay, and tell their friends from all over the world, wouldn't that be transformational to Elmina? And that is the thinking we have. So let me stop there. We talk about immediate steps, but I want to actually ask the folks from Elmina Development Fund what they think about how we have some ideas, and maybe I should say that. To start with, we have this idea of raising a lot of money to build a whole bunch of museums, engage the schools, and a lot of that. But I think the immediate focus is telling the story, one. The second thing is working with all the key stakeholders, too, in that order. So we have some ideas, the digital content creation, the oral history. Jean Marie launched a book yesterday written by J.E. Casely Hayford. These are all part of the story that we want to tell that has resonance. We talked about the Fancy Summer School. We've thought about, how do we work with the Elmina Development Fund. But these are just the first set of ideas. These are just the first set of ideas. But we really want to have a very deliberate roadmap working with, especially Elmina Development Fund, because you're on the ground, you know how to get things done, you know what the issues are, and it would be foolish to think without you this can succeed. But we don't want to just do festivals, you've heard us. We want to do museums, we want to engage the schools. Eventually we want to get into the curriculum of this country. That has to happen. It may not happen next year or the year after, but if we don't get into the consciousness of our people, it will not sustain. So, Kakra.
Could we understand a little bit more about the organization itself? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the platform. As Prof rightly said, as normal indigenes of Elmina, we had put ourselves together at least to project the community and to survive the community. We are talking about Elmina. If we seek to still talk about Elmina the more, Elmina should be in existence. So in our own way or two, there are things that we see must go on to keep Elmina before any other person will still come and see how old Elmina has been for any continuity. So we are planning our own way to put some resources together to address certain challenges that set Elmina back. For example, in the field of sanitation, giving some aid to schools. So like as he said, we've had a donor like him, getting us some few computers to some selected schools and few others that we have put together. So basically, as we put ourselves together with this vision, everything, not entirely, we can say 80% is done with money. We needed to bring from the people who could connect us to the world and to also help us get something for the local visions that we have. Let me put it so. So with Nana Ison Benjamin, having been in that upfront before and with Elmina Traditional Council, through the Omahini, he was given to us as our aid support, and we put ourselves together. While in our line of activities, we also realized there has been a complement group, let me put it that way, that's Elmina Heritage Foundation. And so Nana spoke to us about Elmina Heritage Foundation, and we were set to meet them so we know, as he's saying, their objectives, ours, and how we could put ourselves together. So this is formally the first ever meeting coming to know. Actually, Prof didn't let me even know that it's going to be this formal. We had thought we were coming to meet Nana Kwekwa or probably one or two in a breakfast table. So basically, we yes, it's a surprise. It's a surprise to us. Basically, what we seek to do is to let Elmina survive, because in our own way, we cannot move forward if the town, the community is completely erased. And the basic things we need to keep the community surviving has been our main goal. Yes, it's registered. It's a registered group. And then you also...
More about survival. What do you mean
kindly permit me to say that's a proverb I chose. Not dying does not mean physically death, but as I'm saying, with all this heritage that we're talking about, if there are other infrastructure or artifacts within Elmina that have been erased or eroded completely, people come and they have no trace. When we are talking about survival, we are giving birth, we have offspring. How do we keep them? How do we survive them so they could? Recently in the Ashanti region, I think I saw a 10-year-old boy explaining vividly activities of the Lake Busum tree to the regional minister. I think it went viral on the social media. And I think same can happen in Elmina, where the coming up really know. I have a question for Prof, but it will be after this. Yes. The name, he had made an introductory comment on the name Elmina Heritage. If it could be Anomansa Heritage. But I think that was, at which point in time did we have Elmina coming from Lamina? Because in other books, we had heard, because of the mine or the place of gold, Lamina, La Mina, we don't know if it's true, if it's corrupted. That was where we had Elmina. That's what I'm saying. This one is father-son stuff. So I'm going to get it from him after a year.
Just said that this is not the name of the town. It's an area from this town up to Shama where gold could be harvested. And that is why it's...
It came down on the rivers, am I right?
Yes. And in fact, when they dredged the river, because there was so much gold, the dredgers took all the sand away to wash for the alluvial gold. So all this place, even now, go to the Benya River, take about a ton of the sediment. It's a lot.
Where's the gold coming from?
Gold is everywhere, everywhere we are sitting. It's just washed. Yes, it's just washed. So it refers to an area which has now been confined to the town.
So concluding, our first plan was to put ourselves together to get equipment and support that will clean Elmina thoroughly to attract much tourists.
How are you going to do that?
So, yes. So, for instance, we had some partners or some people from Elmina from Holland, that is his twin brother, to make some sort of arrangements for this vehicle that that sweeps in town. I think what a suburb of Kumasi is using that now. Yes, the street sweeper. We had made some arrangements for that, and then also to move away all people alongside the Elmina main corridors that dirty the place, like the cattle ranches and some activities that really do not project Elmina, that being the gateway to tourism and other stuff. So this and many more.
I just want to stop you.
Okay.
There's a certain urban development component to that. I think Atukwesi would be very interested in that, wouldn't he? So how do you clean up the town?
That's right.
For tourism?
That's right.
Never mind the museums and all of that, just clean up the town.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is that what you want to end?
No. That should be a starting point. Yes, I have said, if we still want to talk about Elmina, Elmina must stay. Elmina must exist. And these and many others keep projecting Elmina, especially in the media, to attract people who then come and see how we have revived our heritage through the museums, to also pick something and then adapt. But if they come now and there is no Elmina, there is no Elmina.
There's an Elmina that's not clean.
Yes.
That's what you mean by
Yes.
Maybe we can ask.
No, Prof, you remember, so you remember. So if they have said,
Where do you actually like? Keep going. I mean, we're going to open it up to reaction. And
At the last meeting, Dr. Olsen, and Dr. Olsen said that there must be an Elmina curriculum where, from the elementary school, children are taught about the value of Elmina and their civic responsibility of preserving and sustaining the cultural heritage of the town. Not only in the form of sanitation, etc., but even our language. The language is an intangible asset, and our language is now being adulterated with English, Pidgin, and there are other people who are not from this town. Their language is creeping into our language. So he talked about Elmina curriculum. May I preempt? In Elmina cultural heritage, the plan was big, but then the plan was broken down into action plans with budgets. Nobody will give us 50 million sanitation. Somebody can give us $100,000. If it's an action plan for the castle, the Portuguese may give us, say, $200,000 to identify what projects we want to tackle, cost them, then sell them, because nobody will give us maintenance and sustenance. So when we left, whatever we did, we thought that the district assembly, the municipal assembly, will maintain and do the sustenance. But there the political element came in. And most of the things that we did ran down. Thank you.
I think the beauty of it is you did a lot of work we can learn from and build upon. And, like we said, we don't have to start again. We have to just start from where you left off and then see where we go. But we certainly agree with you that we have a grand vision, but you have to break it down. We have to be very clear what those discrete parts are. Let me ask Adonto Hini to react as a representative of the chief.
Yeah, okay, so I would like to ask Prof about the Elmina Heritage. I think it was Elmina Heritage Fund. Okay, yeah, I think ultimately we saw the project and it was beautiful. Funding went into it. But our observation was that most tourists, when they come to the castle, they equally do tour in Elmina. They go to the various heritage infrastructure spaces. But unfortunately, we don't know whether or not they were giving some money to the heritage or the foundation that could be used for maintenance. For me, I think that aspect could have been drawn from there, because Elmina Castle is being managed by a monument. They take 100% fees, and the community, Elmina, will get virtually nothing from that. So if funding were drawn from other spaces to even develop some tourist sites, then it will be reasonable enough that we either do some kind of agreement with Elmina Castle or the managers, the monument, so a percentage can be drawn from there to us to manage and maintain the infrastructure that is not within their jurisdiction. So I think going forward, that could be my suggestion.
Yes. During the Elmina Cultural Development Program, we arranged that the proceeds from the castle will be divided into three. One as revenue for the government, another third for maintenance of the castle, and another third for the traditional council. Why? The Elmina chief and traditional council do not have any dedicated source of income. Elmina chief does not work. He lives on goodwill of people. And I think it is not good for the chief. Because for how long can he beg for support? Asante does not beg, even people bring it. And when this thing actually succeeds, people will actually beg to fund the chief. The chief hasn't got money. And so with the Heritage Elmina Development Plan, we are thinking of, there are about 1,200 canoes on the river. It's a parking lot. So each canoe will pay 50 cedis a month to the chief and the traditional council to survive. There are petrol stations.
So it's not happening now, right?
No, it's not happening. We have to.
What would make it happen?
What will make it happen is to call, for instance, there are 3 chief fishermen. That we conscientize them. This is it. If the river is not there, you cannot function.
Why can't we do that now?
Oh,
Let us. Why
it-
can't we do that now?
we can do it as a committee. So these are ideas coming up. Naneko Bregan Square, when we did it, 1/3 is for the traditional council, 1/3 is for maintenance, 1/3 is for revenue for KEA. KEA takes everything and leaves the traditional council. So there are units,
What does KEA do with it?
because it's a space for ceremonial events. It's an event space, but it takes it, it doesn't give. So there are other units like drugstores. They can come together. We tax them, say 20 cedis. There are people like hoteliers. They should pay us 100 cedis a month and all that, so that it becomes sort of income for the traditional council to be able to sustain the cultural heritage that we have. Every year we go begging, and people like say Adonko bitters or something will say, yeah, we will come, but if only you throw Adonko bitters, sachet drinks from your palanquin, which is not cultural. So if the chief, if the substantive, you are a chief. If you are going to the festival, you spend nearly 5,000. And these are village chiefs. They don't have. So we are thinking of dedicated income for the traditional council.
So along that lines of what you were saying, is there something that the traditional council itself, right, can come up with as a product, that they can maybe market to generate revenue, for themselves, based on the culture, because they are the what's it called, the custodians of the culture, right? So is there something that they can do? It doesn't have to be them alone, but probably maybe partner with some other organizations.
Yes, for instance, Elmina has the Elmina salt industry, which it had outsourced. But then we have to help the chief that it is not just production of edible salt. We have table salt. From the salt we can get sodium chloride, from which we can mix to.
Who are we outsourced it to?
I don't know the company. But from its inception, we have always outsourced it because we cannot sustain to buy 400 bags of cement at 123 cedis to maintain. So we have always outsourced it. From the salt, we can make sodium chloride. We can make sodium hydrochloric acid. From there, we can make chlorine for sanitation of water, sodium hypochlorite, etc. So if we can ask the investors to add value to the salt, then we may.
Just a question for Anthony. Who manages, knows about the salt? Is that KEAA? So you know about it?
Honestly, I'm a very new chief at the palace. Concerning the salt industry, the little that I can say is that it has been given to a business
We
person.
don't know. Or we do
I
know.
have met the business partner, but I don't know much about
Is it a
the
secret?
content. It's not a secret. It's an open thing. Only that I cannot speak much about it because I don't have a lot of details about it.
When the revenue comes, there's a tax that comes to the traditional council.
Yes, which I'm
Part of the
aware.
traditional
Yes, I'm part of the Traditional Council.
Do you know how much that is?
I don't know how much in terms of the amount, but I know that 20% of their profit usually comes.
But do we keep the books?
Yes, we have books on that.
So, I mean, it leads me to the question, how do we involve the KEA? No, you are not, KEA is different from the traditional council.
Exactly so, yes.
You mean that.
Yes. And
But-
KEA cannot be part of the salt industry as we speak now because the organogram or the structure is that the Traditional Council hold 100% of the shares in the
In the salt.
salt industry. KEA can come on board as a partner if there are some interventions or policy guidelines that can help improve the salt industry, but they cannot own it because ownership is already established and defined. Yes.
I want to ask Adonte one last question before we open it up. I think Anthony or someone said, and we agree, this effort will not succeed without the involvement of the Traditional Council, the chiefs, and also KEAA. And we talked about the politicization of Elmina's development. How do we go about doing that successfully? What is your view? How do we involve KEAA and the municipality and the parties and all of that? What is the best way to do that?
All right, thank you. I think as I sit here, I'm also the development committee chairman for the assembly. So I double as a chief and also part of the government appointee. And I from the wings of the Traditional Council. So basically, if we are able to come up clearly with the next steps, I think we need to hold a stakeholders engagement with KEA and other parties. I will even be happy if we can even join the hoteliers who are beneficiary when it comes to some of these activities, so that we can have a broader discussion on how KEA can contribute, how the hoteliers can also contribute, and how the Traditional Council, which we are already represented, we can contribute. We can have a
That
clear.
sounds like something that must happen very soon.
Very, very soon. That will actually, give a clear, footpath as to where we are going, because then everybody is involved. Then things are clear from the very beginning.
Can I ask Elmina Development Fund, how do we work with KEA? You not to disagree with Adonte, but what additional things we must do with KEA?
First of all, I'll make some comments, and then if that needs clarity, maybe Prof and others will come through. KEA is Commander Edna Eguafo Abrim. Elmina is the capital of KEA. And so if you're coming from Dutch Commander, the chief of Dutch Commander is part of the Edna Traditional Council. But we're talking about Elmina. These, the glory that we get are likely to rain on them as well. But I am, okay.
And honestly, in my understanding, when we talk about Elmina, it actually encompasses Dutch Commander, Ayen Sudo, Isaman, Simeon, Elmina town itself, up to Itri. So Elmina is not just the town itself. You understand? Exactly. It's a paramountcy. So even though I'm a Simeon chief, but Simeon is Elmina. It's a suburb of Elmina. So whatever we are doing, we are not leaving Dutch Commander out. We are not leaving, Simeon out. Ayen Sudo, Isaman. It's all encompasses. Yes. It's
That's
part of
what we
them.
think also.
Exactly, and that is the reality. Elmina, yeah.
Something for you. Elmina has got about 22 villages. The salt industries for Elmina town, not for Simeon and the rest, but the chief may use the proceeds of the salt industry to help other communities. Because these 22 villages, you have got your lands belonging to Ebusuepin and the rest. When you sell the lands, you don't bring revenue to the traditional council. So I'm talking of the salt in particular. It belongs to Anumansa. Then he can help the other villages. Except, of course, you want to say the lands of all the 22 villages belong to Elmina town.
Yeah, Prof, I think that is not in dispute. I'm not speaking in respect to resources, lands. Okay, you adapt.
For instance, I understand from the air that you have found lithium in your community. Yes, we are known from the early stages that Samuel has gold already. If you make a good agreement with the government or whichever powers that be, and then you start picking revenue from them, are you going to bring it to Elmina or it stays there? All I want to say is it's a good beginning. This is the right time because these discussions are starting now and will go a longer way. If Elmina Heritage Foundation, EDF, or whatsoever group just points down straight to help Elmina. So this is just the beginning. If we give ourselves a little time to talk about the salt, we may not see any documents from this. Trust me.
Yeah, I think my issue is not even about the salt. I'm looking at the geographical, boundaries of Elmina. And I wouldn't take any community within the Elmina traditional area because the name is Elmina traditional area. You understand? I agree with you. If there are certain resources within Tetere Kesim and, Eshuechiri, people from there who's Ebusuepin or elders discover those resources, we take possession and actually make, a good profit from it without recourse to the community at large. But I can confidently say that Simeon, whatever we find there, be it gold, lithium, Elmina cannot be, definitely. We will definitely do that.
Okay, so a good discussion from my point of view because I think it also raises the question of who are we trying to benefit? When we say Elmina, what do we mean? I think of Elmina not as just the town, but the whole environment, even stretching all the way to Cape Coast. Let me say it properly. Cape Coast is not Elmina. But if we do a good job in Elmina, and people are coming to Elmina, they'll go to Cape Coast as well, right? The point is, we want to elevate Elmina in what we believe is its rightful place. And why are we saying that? Because many of us who don't live here, we come to Elmina and we see all the things you see, and not enough of us say, what can we do to help? And really the effort right now is, what can we do to help? How do we contribute in our various ways, our various capacities, our various wherever we live, how can we help? But not in a haphazard, I have a good idea, you have a good idea, you have a good idea. How do we put all those good ideas together? I don't think it's too simplistic to think that one good idea will solve all the problems. But let's weave together a theme that we can all get behind in our various capacities and contribute to that theme. The original idea of Elmina Heritage Foundation was not to stop what she was doing or he was doing, but how do we weave them together into a story that was coherent, that was reinforcing, that led to the same idea of what can we do next. So I'd like to actually, at this point, at the risk of prolonging this conversation at length, I see a number of different pieces to this particular story. I think the first thing that comes out is working with the stakeholders. And I think one of the immediate things is how do we have that meeting with KEAA and what is it we are trying to do? But we've got to decide what is it we are trying to do first before we go to them. And they'll have their own ideas, right? They'll have their own ideas. But I see, we've always seen, it's not that I see, there's a telling the story component to this. What is that story? And we know the story. I mean, it's sort of in bits and pieces around the room. How do we tell that coherently, fluently, articulately? How do we tell that in a way that resonates? How do we tell that in a way that gets people excited? And so there's a whole piece to that which we must put together. You know, in some respects, folks like Jean Marie are telling that story over there, kind of thing. But your work overlaps some of what Elmina is trying to do, and you actually have a very personal relationship with people from Elmina at this point. So how do we tell that story? And there are, you know, there's clearly what I see is sort of the content and how we express that content. So the content is in people's heads. How do we put that together? And so we're thinking oral history, we're thinking, you know, video documentary, we're thinking books, we're thinking audio books, we're thinking curriculum. What is the story? We've got to put that story together. So that's one. I want to get to that in a minute. I think there's also what we see as how do we address the microeconomic issues or the socioeconomic issues of Elmina? Sanitation, unemployment, defecation on the beaches, clean road streets. There's a piece to that. Which one leads which one? Do we sweep the streets before we do the museum? Or do we do the museum and get the money to street the streets? A little bit of that. But there's a piece of that. I think when we started talking, we talked about the fishing industry and also the salt industry today. There are some economic activities that we cannot ignore in this story. How do we bring that to be part of the story on some level, whether it's revenue or taxes or whatever? What is it we can do to promote that, help that? If there's lithium, you know, you can keep thinking about that. But what do we do to promote that? All of these things, if we support or we identify to understand what needs to be done, it's part of a story that people can get behind. We can call it phase 3, phase 4, the economic activity, get behind it. There's maybe people will even like to invest in the salt industry or the lithium industry or whatever industry. There's a piece of that that we must talk about. And for me, if you like, the core piece of this is maybe part of telling that story is, if in fact we can tell that story very well, what is it we would like to see in 10 years' time of Elmina Castle or Cape Coast or Fort St. Jago or all the different forts that, you know, Anthony talked about. If we had those resources, what would we like to see? We would like to see that. Now, whether we see that in a year or two, maybe not. Could we see that in 5 or 10 years? And lay out the foundation where if we're not around to see it, our children will see it because we've laid the foundation, we've laid the blueprint, we've laid the roadmap out that we just follow. And we want to get to that point. So there are different pieces of that we want to identify and then address. So I want to start with the history bit, and I just want comment around that. What have we heard today? What have we not heard today that needs to be done in telling that story? I'm happy to hear from anybody. What do we need to do to tell that story well? What do you think we need to do?
So thank you, for giving us an opportunity to speak. So just personally, I'm somebody who's very passionate about what you're doing, so I'm really excited about it. Like I mentioned before, we've done a lot of work. Our organization is called SIDAF. It essentially means. Okay, so it means Solve, Incubate, Deploy Africa. And the program that we have here, it's sidaf.org, you can look it up. The program that we have here in Elmina is called FREE, and stands for Foundation for Remembrance and Economic Emancipation. So we've been working on this for the last 5 years, right? And we made a lot of impact, in my opinion, right? What we had set out to do was a vision for a promenade, between Coconut Grove and Elmina Castle, which is a 1.6-mile stretch, right? So, I mean, we have a vision for what the model should look like, right? What we realized,
The vision has drawn, I mean,
yes, it's a short model, like a video, right, of what it should look like, and we did a lot of work. We had a program manager on the ground. So what we did was we partitioned the whole stretch into zones, and then in each zone we had some type of hierarchy for how each zone should be managed, right? And what we did then was have our program manager engage all the people in the zone on different ideas to improve the zone. So the next step was to engage the university community and their students, because we realized that this is a huge endeavor, right? We need to bring in students so that whilst we are doing the transformation, we're also learning, right? So the idea was to have students as project managers for each of the zones. And then our organization would be managing the various programs, along the stretch, right? This build an event center because of the frustrations that we faced, with this. We didn't have enough funding, in putting a lot of money into this, right? So we decided that, look, we need to find a source of revenue, so we put a lot of money into building a 500-seat event center, which is just, on this stretch, towards,
where is it?
It's right as you drive down here.
Is that Lush?
Named it yet, so it's about, no, it's 80% complete, so we're almost there. We can give you a talk if you're interested, but yeah. So what we plan to do, right, is to have a relationship with the Department of Drama and Dance, right, at UC, right, and Fred and I have been working on it. We've met with them. They've shown a lot of interest. So I think this is one of the ways, that we can tell the story, as you say, right? Because I think that, telling the story as we, there are all kinds of people who have some type of, association, to the heritage of this community, right? So we need to make sure that it's inclusive, it's not divisive, that it's not pointing fingers at anybody, So I think it's really important, that we bring all the stakeholders together. We can share our experience, based on what we've done. And I think, you tell us, you can use our event center. We will be doing work with the, like I said, with the department. We could do it in the form of competitions, right? Say, give a theme, and then let them come up with content.
If it's done well, my goodness, you can have restaurants along the way, whatever you want to call it.
And you can work by zones, right? You accomplish a certain specific task in a zone, and that becomes a selling point for all the
I
others.
think that's a fantastic idea. But anyway.
I think
great.
Jean Marie wanted to say
Yeah.
something.
Do I have to?
Go ahead. Keep
I'm
going.
meant to- yeah.
Does anyone else? My voice is not in.
I think having an event center, oh, sorry, so if they're not fit, it doesn't.
You don't need
This has come up a couple times just in the preliminary conversations, working through broad ideas with the board, because part of what I took from what Anthony was saying is that heritage is not just a thing that you put in a picture behind a case and throw it in a building. It's very much living, right? And people come to a place, they want stuff to do and stuff to see. You want to have a sense not of culture, but of culture. Think about all the murals that have gone up on the bridge connecting the two halves of just Elmina town, and all the artists have signed their name and they've listed their emails so that they can be brought in and included. But having a hub, an actual space where things can rotate through, also gives you the opportunity, and potentially us, to leverage foreign universities and study programs. And I know that it's been a big issue with bringing students to Central Region, is that there's nowhere to bring them. I have a close divided into different hotels for a few days, and there's no hub. There's not a place where they can go and see a bunch of different stuff and go to a gallery. And I think that's absolutely crucial, and it also, I think, points to part of what I took you to be saying as well, because that people are already doing incredible work that is 10 years beyond what we're doing, but in their wheelhouse. Kojo in the realm of heritage architecture, another good friend of mine, Paul Ninson, Dekan is a force. I mean, they've done more to digitize archives in Ghana than we could do given 5 years and money. So why not have an actual physical space where you can start partnering with the organizations that are already, that are already doing this stuff. So imagine a Dekan partnership exhibition on Elmina photos, right? The Elmina archive in particular, sponsored by or in partnership with the EHF, and then hosted at your event space.
Exactly. That's precisely.
I mean, it's the aggregator, right?
Exactly.
Having that physical
Exactly.
spot.
Yeah. And so besides just the.
Use a microphone, friendly call,
Yeah. No, that is absolutely what we have in mind, right? And, I don't want to divulge, the name, but you would see even from the name, that is exactly what we have in mind, right? Because
Name of what?
of the event center.
So I see.
So yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, and that's what we hope to be, yeah.
But the idea we have, I mean, is not to, we want to support that. I mean, we're not going to get in the way of that. We want, how do we work with you on that, just like
Yeah.
you said.
And I think, when I started this work, right, like I saw that there is a lot of in this for everybody, in my opinion, right? It's so much work, right? So, I mean, we welcome everybody. We want to partner with everybody and see how this is going to work.
I mean, imagine if EHF could sponsor an annual lecture.
Exactly, seminars,
Right.
around the history of
I mean,
everything.
I could do that now. I
Yeah.
could take the Humanities Institute at Johns Hopkins, and I
Yeah.
could, it would have to be Johns Hopkins
Yeah.
sponsors a lecture, but it's there, it's in Elmina.
Exactly.
And I think the idea would be that it also isn't only, again, sort of old Elmina heritage, but why shouldn't Elmina, given its centuries-long baked-in cosmopolitanism, host more events like what we did last night?
Exactly.
Kwame Appiah makes this point a lot, that kind of we're always talking about repatriating African art, but what about bringing non-African art to Africans who are interested people in the world as well? And again, you have to
Part of
have...
that cosmopolitan tradition.
Exactly. Why isn't that part of thinking about cultural programming in Elmina? It's patronizing to think that it's not.
Exactly. I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, the thing about Elmina is that Elmina has had an impact on world culture, right? Like the culture of the world that we see today, you could argue
Yeah.
originated in some fashion from Elmina,
Yeah.
right? So I think, there's so many ways you can sell this,
Yeah.
right?
I love
And that's the beauty of it. There's so much content there.
And it's there for the taking. I mean, I could get a group of students to you within 2 years' time, a full-paying group of eager young American whippersnappers.
Sure. I think the beauty of it, and I know Grace is dying to speak. I mean, this morning, Sandy, we came in and there was a busload of African Americans coming in. Did you see them? I mean, we have a flow already. That flow could be 10 times, and it's not just African Americans. It could be people from all over the world appreciating the cosmopolitan history of Elmina. But that's what we're looking for, not the few who come and cry about slavery, which is...
And I think the problem that is very doable. We had a budget of $700 a month, right? And this was funded by ourselves. We had a program manager, and I tell you the impact that he made, right, was profound. Like just by interacting with the people, right? Every day we sponsored little events, like fish markets. We had a big bus, so we could bus the market people, the fisher folk, to the fish.
The market.
Yes, the fish market. We had several events in partnership with the UCC department.
Use the mic, we're recording.
Sorry. So we had several events with the UCC Department of Agric, right? that were sponsored by us. We didn't have to put in a lot of money because we had a bus already, so we just bought fuel, but they would move farmers there. And that alone brought us a lot of credibility, so folks were willing to sit with us. The fisher folk in the communities were willing to sit with us on very small budgets. All we needed money for was for meeting events, community meetings, right? Like, baking pies and things like that, just to make them happy, sit down, and then come up with ideas for how their zones could be developed, right? So I think there's so much there for all kinds of people, but we thought that the best model was to work with local universities and then have a model that works with local universities before we can sell that model to universities outside, right? And that was because we're struggling. If we could readily sell it to universities outside without the local universities.
Johns Hopkins is sitting right here.
Yeah, if we could readily sell a program to foreign universities, we would do that, right? Because we think that it's there. Because there's so many problems that different departments can solve in each zone. Whether it's we had a cultural enhancement representative, we had a sanitation rep, we had different kinds of reps in each zone. That was the structure, right? So if you have, say, maybe a sanitation problem in the zone, it could be the Department of Civil Engineering or Sanitation or whatever in a university, right? And their students trying to solve that problem. So I think that there's a lot to be done and there's a lot of opportunity.
Did have internships?
Exactly.
I mean, it's.
Exactly. Yeah.
Grace.
I think that if we want to create a sustainable foundation for all of these things to happen, which essentially is connecting a lot of different siloed projects together into a very sort of sustainable, ecosystem. The first thing that we need to do is to ensure that we have established organizations that have an agreement together in order for us to
Agency who can get it done.
who can get it done, absolutely. From the conversations that we've had so far, it sounds like the first substantive thing that needs to happen is some sort of town hall, right? And before that can happen, we need a stakeholder map, and we also need clarity on the assets that belong to the various stakeholders so that we understand how we can work together. So I think that so that's one piece of it. The other piece is the stories that need to be told. I love the fact that you've got these musical and you're working with the universities and all of that. We need to be able to put all of this in the digital space. We know that. In order to attract funding, they've got to see that we exist. They've got to understand the impact that we can create. They've got to understand the import of what we're trying to do. And so one key component of this is to put these stories out there in a unified way so that it isn't that one organization's here, another's there. Absolutely, the organizations need to exist, but we need to be able to convey the collaborativeness of,
We're working together.
what we're doing, right? And that's really the purpose of the Heritage Foundation. Ours was to create that ecosystem so that all of the work that has been done, and so much work has been done. From the very first time that we had the meeting a couple years ago, that's part of the reason why we went forward to establish the organization, because it was clear that so many stakeholders had already done work. But what we want to do is to be able to attract funding. Otherwise, we are in a position where we have to wait for outside organizations to see what we're doing, and then they create, opportunities for us, as opposed to us creating our own opportunities, right? And obviously, the traditional council's role in this is vitally important. But one thing that I think most Ghanaians struggle with sometimes is clarity as to exactly what the traditional councils, just generally in the country, you know, what the outcomes of their custodianship is. So it's something that we also need to work on to articulate what these various stakeholder groups actually can, you know, the impact that they can create. And all of this is part of the storytelling that needs to happen. Now, how does the storytelling happen? It's relatively simple. In the age of social media and all of that, we simply have to create the content, right? Yesterday's event was one such. We've got so many various strings to pull on that we can, you know, tell in bite-sized, accessible ways so that not only Ghanaians, but also, you know, people from outside can identify what we're doing and then put that out there so that we can attract more people to what we want to do. So, getting back down to what can happen next. I believe that EHF can spearhead the very first thing being a stakeholder map so that we are clear on which organizations, which individuals are doing what and what they have. Once we have that, we need to meet and have some sort of town hall so that we can begin to sequence the various things that need to happen. We will, when it comes to these types of projects, the problem that we typically, or the challenge that we typically have is really the administrative effort, right? That's really what it boils down to. And I think that EHF can take that on as, you know, the thing that, as you know, the work of articulating in a document. We will need an MOU of sorts, right? In fact, not of sorts, we will need an MOU. We have the Elmina Development Fund, we have a traditional council, we have your organization. We need clarity on how exactly we intend to collaborate. We need to articulate just the general alignment so that when we have a stakeholder meeting, a town hall, we know what we are working towards. We've already done so much work, but we really need to, you know, bring it all together so that we can get and raise the funding. Yeah.
Grace, I want to actually ask a few questions. So could you're an architect. We see a real component of urban development here. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I'll put it this way, that all the efforts that we have mentioned here and has ever happened in the past, there's one thing that is missing from it. So you can imagine it to be pages of a book, all our efforts ever, from Save Elmina to Elmina Cultural Foundation, everything, as pages of a book. But the book itself, what is the book? So I am calling the book the Heritage, Architecture and Conservation Area Act. It's a law. So when we carve out or we designate Elmina area as a heritage conservation area, like in other jurisdictions around the world, if it's a conservation area, there are things that can happen here. Everything is coordinated under this law. It also mandates what revenues will go to what development and so on. So that whatever efforts that you are putting in...
You're basically saying that ultimately, or not ultimately, but soon, there should be a legal basis for what we do.
Exactly.
That governs what we do.
Yes, you see, so this act will tie up into LUSPA, Land Use and Special Plan. That is what will give the legal basis for your zoning, for your bridge, for your promenade, and everything. You know, so not only does the MMDA have to approve it, they approve it because it's part of heritage development. It's a special act that mandates, looks at pubs, development of restaurants, development of hotels, everything differently, other than
Do we have such a thing in Ghana already?
No, we don't.
We don't.
We don't. We've never had. You see? So everybody can do anything next door to anything. That when we have this area act, this area, and every city in Accra, every area that sees itself that look, we are a heritage, and I think that Edina or Elmina needs to be the starship. It needs to be the starship. Because this is where what I've heard here this morning and afternoon speaks to all of it. How does the MMD, act with this? They need to give the permits. They need to see the sanitation. They are mandated to do all of these things. And the Act will enforce all of these things and give it another layer.
So this means like approaching this through parliament.
Yes, exactly. So it puts yes. Not only does it force the government to look at Elmina, it will force the international world, because heritage is not local. It's not a local effort. Once you say something, and we have not one, two, we have 3 or more World Heritage sites here. And every World Heritage site has a certain zone around it, which can be almost like a mile around of controlled development. Why can't we draw on that? Okay? The Tourism Act itself specifies that the minister can also look at areas that attract tourism and consider that place a designated area by law. Same thing for the National Development Planning Commission. They can also mandate the Municipal Assembly to mark out special areas for whatever. So why can't we draw on these existing laws to carve out a heritage area, conservation area, so that we can every effort we put in can now be put in, including maintenance, because that is what was missing in the Elmina. They did it, but there was no plan for continuing. Now, if there are laws that say whatever revenue comes from this, that, and whatever revenue comes from not only the forts and castles, but commercial activities, from mining activities, from any other activities, can be lodged in such a common fund for the heritage development of Elmina, then that is it. It's by law. And it is sustained. You see, it means whatever government comes, there's no question that a government comes and says, I'm not doing this. It is law. And we can develop it.
So you're thinking to do this in parallel with all the small initiatives?
Yes.
It will take some time.
Yes, So all what you have said is what supports this move, that we must have it. Because it's not just about Elmina developments we wanting to do, but if we wanted to develop a town hall, we wanted to develop some facility, what should it look like? What should it be? What story should it tell? So the act actually is what maintains the story. That's what survives.
It underpins the story.
Yes.
It really
Keeps the
undergirds
story surviving. Elmina will remain that way because of the law. Otherwise, there's nothing that says it can't change forever. Nothing says anybody can build any resort anyway. But we have a development plan that includes drumming and dancing, acting, reenactments, anything at all. And we know how to fund it first locally. And once we have that designation, on us, then it strengthens every international organization to look at us because we are legal.
And do you think that there would be any, it sounds like a naive and rhetorical question, what would be the reason not to do it? Are there people who would say, what a bad idea, it's in my vested interest?
I can't tell any reason why there is not. We've not only has Edna tried it, Jamestown has tried this. They've tried it. They had a very big, what they call the Jamestown Development Committee in Jacobejet Beach time. Takrady also tried something for the revitalization of their home houses. We have throughout the decades, from the 1950s, from Professor Highland trying to conserve the castles. They've spoken about legislation that helps to maintain.
it failed?
It's never had. It never went. It never.
We didn't have a champion
It never
to move
went
it
onto
through.
the legislation table.
We didn't have a champion, and we're actually lucky in that we're signed
Grace.
up to every international. We're signed up to every international treaty policy that we need to buttress and this.
But it sounds
project.
like, I
We
mean, to
need
the
a
extent
champion.
that others have tried it, they could be our allies. I mean,
Yes,
because it would help them as well.
Yeah, to help them as well. This connects to every facet of, life in Elmina and any town that has got heritage. Otherwise, it will be difficult for government to pay it attention, or for the international organizations to be confident enough to pay it attention. What does the Dutch government give for the castles, maintaining the castles? $40,000.
Nothing.
That's the cost of a car.
Yeah.
Do you see? What will let us attract more? For a whole town, there has to be a different system. It can't just be GMMB doing their thing, and the government doesn't look at GMMB. GMMB is not a powerhouse. They are mandated to look after cultural buildings and so on, but they are not a powerhouse. We have to draw something new to strengthen them.
Yeah.
To strengthen them and strengthen us.
That's a wonderful point. I want to move away from that. We're holding on to that point. Oh, sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
Thank you very much. When the Elmina Cultural Heritage Program was going on, we had stakeholders meetings, as Madam was advocating. So we met different people from all zones of Elmina to tell us what they think is the problem with Elmina. We got 90 proposals for what was wrong in Elmina and to be addressed. Then we condensed the 90 demands, and the 90 demands amounted to 1, fish and fish industry in Elmina. 2, tourism and socio-economic development of Elmina. 3, health. 4, education. Then 5, health. Have I mentioned health? Yes. So if you go to the net, you see Elmina Cultural Heritage Program. It is there. Now what Dr. Deban is saying becomes very relevant now. In the stakeholders meeting, we had the assembly. And so whatever we crafted as our strategic plan, we thought that it is Elmina owned, because the assembly was part of crafting the 2015 strategic plan. It's also on the net. What we didn't do is what you are recommending. It was not backed by legislation, but we thought that the assembly, being part of the planning, would take it up. Only to see that politicization was, yes. Everyone who came thought that to continue it gives credit to the previous one. And so that is where your submission that it is backed by law and cannot be manipulated, whoever is there. And so it also suggests that whatever is the plan, we make it part of the website of the Elmina Traditional Council, so that you can tap into Elmina, whatever, this and all that. So people know. Despite the fact that we have done town consultation before, for this one, a repetition is not bad because that generation is gone. That was in 2006. And things are changing. So a repetition is not bad. It's
needed.
It's needed. Yeah, this English, I didn't. it reinforces. It reinforces the need. Maybe I'll task my brother, it's my cousin, and my grandfather too, because to make a very catchy Elmina song, which encourages all Elminians to sing and feel. So this group here will make the intellectual academic work. Then probably, ask people as if they are giving us the ideas. Because people are diverse, and we do the consolidation first and let them to reinforce what we think. Other stakeholders include our brother Afro-Americans in Elmina. Unfortunately, the people of Elmina are becoming fed up with our brothers from the diaspora.
The ones who come and visit?
No, those who are here, they don't integrate with us. And some behave as if they are superior to us. They are a people unto themselves. They have bought all the lands here.
This is Rabbi and team.
Yes. And they make their own way of living. So we don't know whether we are welcoming them to be part of them as or not. And they are giving the Traditional Council instructions. There are somebody who told me the castle should be painted black because white edifies. You say you are black. Now you say you want me to paint the castle black, your color. But they don't know that the saddest color in Elmina is white. The saddest color in Elmina is white. When somebody has a tragic accident, he's buried in a white coffin. Everything is white. The Elmina color for mourning is brown, not even black. So the people who are here even don't want to understand our culture and abide by the principle. So the stakeholders meeting should include them so that...
Have we tried to engage?
It has happened before. But you see, it is a sort of incoming neo-colonialism. So...
Anyway, wonderful submissions, by the way, and I'm sure we could go on.
Because you said emancipation.
Yeah. I want to...
The people who are here are Afro-Americans who are talking of emancipation, but they have set themselves aside from the people of the region.
Sure.
So they are the same as our...
If I can play devil's advocate for a moment.
Use your microphone to be the devil. And,
If I can play devil's advocate for a moment. Part of the problem is that when they don't have the information available to them, then they sort of need to create a narrative that makes sense for them. Globally, we are experiencing the same problem everywhere, where people from outside come and settle in an area. For various reasons, they are unable to integrate well. And so in order to survive, they kind of create their own culture and, space. So if we can try to not demonize it, but to acknowledge what is happening and then work towards it and be very intentional about taking a collaborative approach to, towards solving these problems, we will get where we need to go. Elmina belongs to Elminians and Ghanaians, but the fact is they're now landowners. You can't kick them out, right? And so we need to figure out a way to work with them in a way that gets us to the outcomes that we want.
I think I'll make a couple of points there. I mean, first of all, is about that stakeholder engagement. And I'd say this. I mean, we might not all agree with everything we're doing. I mean, you might have a different opinion from them and us, but we must engage. And we must be clear on the things we can agree on, and then leave the things we can't agree out. So that's something we must recognize. But I certainly agree with Grace about what is our narrative, which is what we're talking about today, that we can share with them and say, where are we on aligned on this, and can we achieve an act, or can we tell the story with plays? And I imagine there are so many things we can agree on because they're not going to hurt anybody. I mean, they're actually going to be helpful to people. There may be some things we don't agree on, and it's up to you in your little corner. But I suspect for the 3 or 4 key stakeholders, there are many things we can agree on. How we do that, we need to think through a little bit. I think the how is always a challenge. I want to, mindful of time, I actually want to get back to telling the story. First of all, I really love what Fred is doing on the plays. It's something we've talked about, event space and telling stories, but it has to be living. It's not a one-time thing. It's an everyday, we want to get into the consciousness of our own people, how we think about where we come from and our history. And it has to start very early. You know, our kids have to know it, and they have to pass it on. It can't be just the people in this room having great thoughts. I mean, there's no value to that. So how we tell that story. So I actually want to ask Anita, as a storyteller, what haven't we thought about, or what do we need to be thinking about to tell that story?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to the meeting. I'm a documentary filmmaker by training and also an anthropologist. So I very much identify with the story coming from the people. You know, you meet the people where they are, you know, whatever they want to tell, whatever stories they want to tell, and very much how they want to tell it. That is really very important. You know, you can't come to a place and use, you know, a certain mode of storytelling that, as a person who's grown up in Ghana but spent most of my time in the UK, you know, I can't come and use like kind of like a Western mode of, you know, storytelling or narrative techniques, you know, to tell people stories here in Ghana. So I think, I mean, in anthropological filmmaking, we are very much invited to think about collaborative storytelling. You know, you work with communities, you work with how they want to tell their histories, you know, using the tools that are available to them rather than imposing your own way of telling that story. And I think, yeah.
What do you think that would look like here?
I think here it will look at maybe doing outreach and, you know, workshops, inviting different people to come and, asking them what stories they want to tell and, you know, how they want to tell it through whatever means. It might not be so much even video. It might be, you know, painting by, you know, however, what feels right to them, you know, that thing, what they want to say, you know, saying it through that.
But safe for a global audience, right? Like, would that be the goal?
What's safe for a global audience, you know? I mean, I think what's important is what's comfortable for the people whose story is being told, you know, and how they feel about telling that story, not for, you know, for an outside audience to understand. I mean, there's a very, I think, famous video clip from a documentary on African cinema. You might have seen it. Is by Africa's, we call him the godfather of African cinema. His name is Usman Sembène, and a filmmaker asked him, you know, do Europeans understand your story? And he says, you know, Europe is very small compared to Africa. You know, you get the whole of Europe together and you put it inside Africa and there's still space left. So for him, it's not so interesting for him what Europe thinks about him, you know. So yeah, that's my.
There is a group in Elmina called Krunkwan and Sesam. I don't know whether you have it. Krunkwan and Sesam. Krunkwan and Sesam tells stories interspersed with music and dance. It is a culture. Until TV and videos came, it was our form of entertainment in the night at Nanako Bregian Square. They tell the story. And I think they have stopped.
Is there a radio station in Elmina?
There is.
And does it have a good, like, audience?
Yeah, it has audience.
3 radio.
There are 3 radio stations. They have audience. So there is a group. There are so many cultural groups, Krunkwanense, some Osode, Apatampa, and all that, which tell the stories of Elmina, which tell the story of Yonyo, which tell the story of Elmina in text, voice, song, and acting. It may be resuscitate Ademkum and all that. So I just...
I'm eager to add up. So with what your foundation intends to do, I was asking myself before I went out that with the your starting era with the university people, which type of story are you telling them? If we want to talk about Elmina, we want to project Elmina. So first of all, we need to identify what the things they are doing now. And we... No, I'm saying like what in existence, what we're doing now. Let's take an example like a Bakatwe. We have learned from history, there was an event or a practice, Gentia 2. It has died off. If he makes a research about Gentia 2, in Gentia 2, and could make Sosoja a story about this and imbibe them, then people begin to ask, oh, so this is our own. Let's go back to Abensini. I met Abensini, I'm not too old, but I met Abensini where people gather around 5, 6, and everybody will carry the kitchen stool to go and sit at Abensini. You can have it at Koplegia in any park. Okay, we've just, any van moving, a documentary, a film, a storytelling, could come up for the people to know we have done this in the past. It's projectors. Once we start and then the interest come, the university people who come by themselves and call others in. So I was asking, I personally don't know where it is. I don't know, Nana. I don't know if you know. Yes.
Yeah, we haven't commissioned it.
Okay.
The location is in Peshi.
Oh, Peshi.
Yeah,
Okay.
when you're driving on that road, you run
So, lots to, Jean Marie wants to say something? We
I just had a question. I mean,
Keep
maybe
going.
there's probably people more on the ground than I am.
microphone.
I mean, it seems like there is an issue with a chicken or the egg thing with funding. I mean, I could easily envision sort of funding possibilities like we were just riffing on, where they're relatively small scale but solid and ongoing. And that's the university funding model oftentimes, right? Is that you know you can count on this $25,000 a year, and it's not going to be cut. It's very reliable, and you have programming around it. That I can wrap my head around. But in terms of the kind of big sums, it's a very difficult one for heading up government because of
What's going on around the world?
our current politics. I mean, the fiscal environment is
Is it global though? I mean, everyone is sort of feeling it. Europe,
already off the board.
Asia,
It's-
the Middle East, UAE. I don't think so.
But no,
I hear you.
But
I-
Western European governments are not
Yes.
necessarily going to be as loose with their purse strings, and the only governments mentioned so far were the Netherlands and Portugal.
The people who had some history.
And Portugal's broke. I mean, but what about? I mean, no one. I was talking to a friend, a guy who runs Decon, who I think is a visionary in terms of what he's done organizationally. He has, because they have personal contacts, he has hit up, for example, Sam Jonah many, many times for relatively small amounts of patronage and sponsorship, and nothing is forthcoming.
Yeah.
And I've heard from so many people here that there's not
Yeah.
a culture of
Philanthropy.
basically rich African
No.
patronage.
No,
Philanthropy.
there isn't.
And that's how the U.S. has done everything
No
in the
question.
cultural sphere.
No question.
Yeah.
So where is it? I mean, is it?
I do think- I do think there's opportunity, and I don't want to overstate it, but let's see. But I do see and hear pockets of the world who are interested in Africa, who want to find entryway in Africa. The UAE is a very good example, the Saudis.
The Iraq elections.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Abu Dhabi not so long ago, and I went to the Louvre, and they talk about storytelling and how they want to tell their story. Equally, they're very interested in how they sort of get themselves more sort of established in Africa because they don't actually know Africa. I'm not suggesting that they will suddenly become the substitutes for Western Europe, but I am saying that we should be thinking about where else we can go. I'm not taking away from the point.
Very tiny class of unbelievably
Wealthy people, yes,
Yeah.
I know.
And-
You know, I mean, what are they doing? I mean, it's a sincere question.
But I do, I mean, one of the things, I mean, Jean Marie has made a point which is really important. It's getting money is going to be a challenge. One of the insights we have, I mean, for my friends on the ground, so we have people who are connected to Elmina in the diaspora, who are very well connected, you know, artists, actors, and we think that we can leverage them to help us raise money. The other day, Jean Marie and I were on a call with two actually quite well-known actors. One called Hugh Kwashi. This is Anna Phillips' relative.
I showed him his too happy.
There you go. He very good. And he's a Elmina descendant. Another called Clark Peters, who's married to an Efson. Both well-known international actors. And they were both very excited about what we were doing. I mean, we knew that 2 years ago, and they reinforced that recently. And they have a network of people who are equally famous and have actually a lot of money. So I'm not thinking about the Sam Jonas of the world. I'm thinking about these people who are actually quite wealthy in their own right. I mean, they may not be billionaires, but who can tap into a network we may not necessarily have. They're not academics, they're actors, they're Hollywood types, if you like. And we think there's a lot of money where that came from. And they said as much. I forget what call, maybe Grace, you were not on that call, but they can connect to just about anybody in that cultural space. And what I like about that network, it's about telling a story. And that's what they do. They tell stories. So never mind the stories about Elmina. They'll tell a story about anybody, but they will especially tell the story about Elmina because they have roots from Elmina. They have a personal connection to Elmina, just like you have a connection to Elmina. Those are the people I want to tap into. But for me, it says to me, I better get my story right. I better tell that story fluently and articulately so that they get very excited and they can then pass on that story. And so far they have. So anyway, I'm not taking away anything you're saying.
Well, I'm not just venting. I guess I'm just wondering if so, and like I'm bringing a very American institutional perspective to this probably, but first thing we would do doing an institute work, kind of culture building work in the States is you would have a big donor event. A donor fundraiser, a dinner, people maybe, and you're building a network explicitly of high net worth individuals who.
But I do think, just to, actually, if I might, I mean, I actually do think, no, in Baltimore or Washington, but actually, Jean Marie, and for this meeting, I actually think the academic platform is essential to help us tell that story, and that $25,000 a year would be fantastic. So I do think from a low-hanging fruit, you know, your network and your assistants and people like Walter would be very helpful in getting to that educational space that you're looking at, because we're looking at it the same. And we think we can get in those modest amounts of money to move us along. But I'm really hoping that once we get some momentum, we can then build upon that and really tap into real pockets of money.
Yeah, and I think that once, we can use small amounts of money. I'm sorry. So I think once we can use small amounts of money to have a revenue generating model, that model could potentially sustain itself.
I mean, even
right?
this idea of plays, fantastic.
Yeah. But once you start getting to huge infrastructure projects, right, I think that even before you get to that, you need to prepare the community for that, right? Because they're not just going to cede land to you
Sure.
to do whatever, right? So, working the community in itself requires funding, and by doing it, in terms of zones, you can pace it, right? You might not need a huge amount of money. Like I said, we were working with $700, a month. And I can tell you, if we had about $2,000 a month, the kind of impact we would make would be so much more than we did, right? So it's not huge sums of money. It's connecting with the people on the ground,
So everybody wants dinner with an option, is what it's saying. That's our model.
Various things need to be happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
And, whilst we're working on these smaller
Mike.
projects, the foundation, the legal structure and the governance of it needs to be established as well. And if some of that, funding from academic funding could be moved into setting that up, that would be very helpful to help us, be more attractive to the institutional donors.
Okay. So, listen, we said we would end at 2, even though we started an hour late, but I think we've touched on a lot of different things. What we would like to do, immediately, is we've already gotten everybody's name around this room. You are, in this room, most of the stakeholders we want to engage. Maybe KEA is not here, but you will help us with that. And then, so, we want to start, capturing what we've discussed today, identify the various strands of activity that are already happening, want to happen, would like to happen. And as Grace said, I sort of see some kind of Gantt chart almost where who's going to work on the act? That's a multi-year thing, may take some time. We need lawyers. Who's going to tell the story? We have people already telling that story. Who's going to help us with the urban development? Think about that too. Who's going to help us with the socioeconomic, the sanitation and the street sweeping and all of that? So we need to think through all those threads of activity, put some timelines on it, put some people on it who are doing it already and we are supporting or not. And there's some important things that have to happen right away. The engagement, with the KEAA and whoever else, the town hall. We need to just think through that. What we will do, and Grace said it, what we have in mind as EHF is provide the administrative support that sort of supports all these, kind of keeps us posted, keeps us okay, who's doing what and when. And what we would like to do, coordination, what we'd like to do is have, I'm proposing a meeting could be every 3 months, every 4 months, just to catch up. But in the meantime, there's a lot of things going on that we can touch base on because you're working on this and Jean Marie's working on this and Kojo is working on that. And we keep up with that. And then we come together. There's no magic to it. I'm saying once every 4 months. It can be virtual. And we say, where are we on our various projects? And how can we help each other? But everybody is a champion of something. So urban development, I'm looking at Kojo for some reason. Storytelling, maybe Anita is helping us with that. The academic, maybe Jean Marie is helping with that. But then we say, where are we? This vision or this goal we have. And obviously in the middle of all of that is the Elmina Traditional Council and KEA and EDF. You are in the middle of all of that because you're on the ground and we are not. But we draw the ideas from you. We draw what are the issues you're facing. We draw what are the obstacles we need to overcome. We come to Elmina from time to time. You live here. And we recognize, if you like, the centrality of your role. You have to be in the middle of that. Or not. You can say, we don't like what you're doing, and then we have to say, oh my goodness, what do we do next? But hopefully you will like what we're doing, and we can work together to get that done. So we will provide the administrative support. We will, start to put something together, and then keep everybody posted, everybody in this room. And we'll start making phone calls. We'll start sitting with you individually. We'll start, how do we do these things we're talking about? It's always the how that's the challenge.
We need to agree on the strategy, though.
Yeah, but we can't, to do that today?
No, not
No. But I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. But I think we've said it. there's so much we want to do, and but it's sort of taking it bite size. Some of it is already being done. We recognize that. Some of it has already been done. We recognize that as well. How do we take that forward? That's really what we're talking about. We're not going to reinvent anything. Hopefully we can improve on what's being done, and we can support things that haven't been done, revive things that we used to do. But I think, when I hear the people around the room, there's nothing we really disagree on. The storytelling, the things we used to do, the socioeconomic things. No, I mean, what is there to disagree with? But I do think that one of the things we are conscious of is that whatever it is we do, if the community doesn't benefit, we are not doing it. We are not doing it, whatever that is. So we have to think through that, because there are always unintended consequences to a lot of what happens. And I think if we're successful, this heritage tourism and elevating it and bringing it into our consciousness, we must bring the people along, and the people must benefit. And if the people don't benefit, we're actually not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I'm very clear on that. Ultimately, it must be the people on the ground who benefit, because that benefits all of us at the end of the day. So that's where I'd like to end. I think but then hopefully at the end of the day we'll say, phase 1 costs this much, phase 2 costs this much, phase 3 costs this much. Those will come. We don't know those numbers yet, but we'll need some money to move things along. We'll think through how that happens. Some of it may come through universities. We don't know yet. But certainly we will do a friends and family thing at some point. But first thing is to agree what it is we're doing, or what it is being done, and then we work on that. So that's kind of where we would like to end, but I mean, I also want to open it up for any last comments of what have we not talked about, or what needs to be done. Anthony, yeah. Maybe you'll have Anthony.
Yeah, for every action plan, we add some 10% sustainability money. The sustainability money, the trustees will invest or do a business which ropes in money to count phase, even if you have not gotten additional funding. Thank you.
Say a bit more about that.
We say that the funding may not be forthcoming, but projects may not be halted halfway. So whatever money that we get, we put a small percentage into some income-generating venture, which continues the halted work until we get additional. So you may set up a chop bar, because people eat always. So it generates money all the time. A small chop bar, a small drinking bar. Yes, to sustain when we don't have money. People may call it 10% miscellaneous or whatever, but whatever is miscellaneous must churn in money. That's the view.
I'll actually go around the room. Any final thoughts? I'll start with you, Kojo. Any final thoughts?
Basically, just what I'm saying about the distribution, I think it's just very foundational to all our efforts. Something that ties us all together and will help us to grow forever. I think that's
Fantastic. Brilliant. Marie.
Yeah, I guess I've got my gears turning on just thinking about different partnership models. So obviously everyone here, but also people who are doing work in Accra that you can imagine being split off. I mean, tentacles, I guess. What tentacles can you grab hold of that can then be locally generative? And also just mulling over possible fundraising models and what it means to be operating in a different kind of, or lack of fundraising infrastructure, and what kinds of plans and lessons we can take from different sorts of organizations and institutions that do a very good job at that.
And there are many of them, right? I mean, there are models out there.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah, model men from them. Atagakra.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Man of few words.
Representing we must say, we're also happy this engagement for the very first time has been very successful. And then I was about asking, how does Elmina Heritage Foundation want it to complement? But it's like drawing together. We must not aim at the bigger cake now. I mean, it's like the drum is coming back home, so we'd have to take our time.
One of the first meetings would be with you by yourself,
Right.
where you have time to tell us all the different things we're doing, because we can't do it all here, and take it from there.
I think within this year, I would have completed my book on Elmina culture and history. And
When exactly is it coming out?
well, Armenians don't like to read. Expensive. So I will complete. But I think that we may have to pay a mini silence to Susan.
We will. She's one of our, I don't, you come last. Grace, any final thoughts?
Simply that everybody here will be put in a WhatsApp group if you're not already. And we would really appreciate your feedback as we share information with you, so that we can work towards developing a strategy that we can all agree to. That roadmap will help us to sequence things, and so that we can be a little bit more effective, in our efforts. Thank you.
In addition to the WhatsApp group, I saw the newsletter. It will be good to update all of us
On the newsletter.
on it. Yeah.
What are you thinking about that newsletter,
Which
Grace?
is what we will share in the WhatsApp group, because I realize that emails aren't always the best way, and that everybody kind of uses WhatsApp, so it's, but that newsletter will be shared on the WhatsApp group, so that we can
Sure.
whatever get response.
But we'd love to, you've got to keep us updated on what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So, yeah, I guess I'm going to be a little again that I think that, education is
money. I knew a certain group in U.S., Atlanta, Georgia, and they're also interested about Elmina. They have an association called Sister City with Elmina, and also I think the group of also that form another association they call Friends of Elmina, and it happened for one of them to be here recently, and I think there's another woman who's a Queen Mother over there that comes to Elmina every year to join the Elmina to celebrate the Bakatui Festival. And then she spoke about this association. And then when she was leaving, I think I and Prof and the Paramount Chief met with her before she
In
left.
Atlanta.
Yes. No, she came here, so we met at Elmina.
From Elmina or from Atlanta?
No, she came from Atlanta.
But is she from Atlanta or?
Yes, she's a diaspora. She's African American. Yeah. And then the one that came recently, what's the name? Kimberly Carter. Yes, she's also spoke about the same association, and then she's very interested to, have something to do in Elmina. So I was unfortunate. I think she's in Accra. If I'd known, I would have, let her join this meeting. But I think I'm going to also speak to them and then make sure I'll get in touch of you.
I think you bring up a very good point that I forgot to mention, and I'll have Sandy say a word before I don't. Yeah, we're looking for a reaction from you. But part of that network, Jean Marie, and one of the people that's on the board of EHF is a gentleman called Zwenis. And what's interesting about Charles, who is my contemporary of sorts, is that he has Caribbean roots. I think his wife or whatever is he himself. And he and I, we put him on the EHF board, Nana, and he's so excited about this project. And he said to me, I can get Motley, who, the lady who's was she Prime Minister of Bahamas?